aspirants. Welcome back to this Ancient India lecture series. And in the previous session, we covered about the Stone Ages, right? Today, we are going to begin with the yet another important topic in the timeline, that is Chalcolithic Age. So, what do you mean by Chalcolithic? The term Chalcolithic, okay? So, Chalco refers to copper, lithic refers to stone. Hence, we are referring to an age where, along with the stone, copper was used by man. Rather, do remember that copper is the first metal discovered and used by man, okay? And hence, this marks a transition phase, a phase from Stone Age, we are slowly and gradually moving towards an age where, along with the stone, man was using metals. And hence, it's a transition phase which connects Stone Age with the Metal Age. Okay, Metal Age means the age where you are purely using the metals. And the transition phase, it refers to the Chalcolithic Age where, along with the stone tools, man even began the use of copper. Okay, that is a metal. Now, when I talk about the timeline of this Chalcolithic period, it begins from around 3400 BCE and it extends to up to 700 BCE. Okay. Now, one of the peculiar feature of this Chalcolithic age in the Indian subcontinent is that certain Chalcolithic cultures existed before the advent of the Harappan civilization. Okay. So, certain are pre-Harappa. Whereas some of the Chalcolithic cultures existed along with the Harappa, or you can say that they were contemporary or they coexisted along with the Harappan civilization. Rather, they were even in contact with the Harappans, okay? They traded with the Harappan civilization people. And there are certain Chalcolithic cultures which existed after the Harappan civilization. If you know the timeline of the Harappa, I'll mention over here the timeline of the Harappan civilization. Mature Harappan civilization is 2600 BCE that goes up to 1750 approximately. Okay. So this is the timeline of the Indus Valley civilization. So if you compare these Chalcolithic cultures in certain parts of India, they are before Harappa. Why? Because they started from around 3400 BC and Harappa started lately from 2600 BC. Okay. And certain civilizations, they were contemporary with Harappa in this timeline. And certain existed even after the Harappan civilization. So Harappan civilization, it declined from around 1750 BC, but these Chalcolithic cultures continued up to 700 BC. Okay, so certain are after Harappan civilization. So you need to remember this fact very clear. Okay, now let us try to understand the timeline and then we'll cover the details of this Chalcolithic age. Okay. So, when I talk about the timeline, so whatever we have covered up till now in history, that timeline we are going to discuss quickly, okay? I'm not going to go into the details, just a brief overview of the timeline. So, the very first age is the Paleolithic age, referred to as the Old Stone Age, okay? Which began from around 2 lakh, okay? Not 2 lakh, 20 lakh BCE, okay? It goes up to 10,000 BCE. Then Mesolithic age from 10,000 BCE to 6,000 BCE. And the Neolithic age from 6,000 BCE to 4,000 BCE. Again, the timeline of the Neolithic age varies from area to area in the Indian subcontinent. And finally, today we are going to refer to the Chalcolithic age, which is also referred to as the Copper Stone Age from 3,500 BCE to up to 700 BCE. Okay. Now let us try to understand the important Chalcolithic cultures in India. So the important Chalcolithic cultures in India, we are going to quickly have a look at it. They're very significant from the preliminary perspective. UPSC sometimes ask the question like where are these cultures situated in which state, across which river valley. So all these facts you need to know. Okay. So the very first culture is the Ahar Banas culture, or it is also referred to as just Banas culture. Why Banas culture? Because it flourished on the banks of river Banas, or you can say it flourished in the Banas River Valley. Fine, that you need to remember. In which state it flourished? It flourished in the present day state of Rajasthan. What is the timeline? 2000 BC to up to 1200 BC. So they were the contemporaries of Harappa. They were in contact with the Harappan civilization. Ahar and the Banas culture people, they traded with the Harappan people. Okay, Harappans required copper. So in Rajasthan, you have Khetri mines. So from the Khetri mines, copper was mined and then it was traded with the Harappan civilization. Okay. Now, what are the important sites associated with the Banas culture? Three important sites are there. The very first is the name Ahar itself. Okay. near Udaipur. Then the next site is Balathal, again in Rajasthan. And finally, you have Gilund. So please remember the three sites associated with the Ahar Banas culture: Ahar, Gilund, and Balathal. Which state? Rajasthan. Which river valley? Banas River Valley. Okay. Then the next culture is the Kayatha culture. Timeline 2450 BCE to up to 2000 BCE. Okay. It flourished on the banks of river Chambal, or you can say that in the Chambal River Valley. So please remember this. Okay. Uh, Covers the area of Malwa Plateau, that is central India, Madhya Pradesh. And the important site of this Kayatha culture is Kayatha itself. Kayatha is known as Kapitaka. Located presently, if you locate this site, it belongs to a site in Ujjain district of Madhya Pradesh. Okay, so remember this Kayatha is the key site associated with the Kayatha culture. Then the next is Malwa culture. So Malwa culture flourished from 1900 BC to up to 1400 BC. It is named after the Malwa region, Malwa culture, Malwa region, and this region is mainly in central India in the state of Madhya Pradesh, MP. Okay, the important sites of this Malwa culture are Navda Toli. Navda Toli is one of the largest Chalcolithic settlement sites. Okay, so do remember this, spanning up to 10 hectares. Then the second important site is Iran, and the third is Nagda. Okay, so please remember all the sites of the Malwa culture: Navda Toli, Iran, and Nagda. Okay, Kayatha culture, only one site we have, Kayatha. Ahar and Banas culture, three sites: Ahar, Gilund, and Balathal. Okay, I hope this first three cultures are pretty clear. Okay. Then the next important is the Jorwe culture. Jorwe culture flourished in the present day state of Maharashtra in the Deccan Plateau area. Okay, so located in the Deccan Plateau area in the western India, primarily within Godavari and the Bhima river basins. Okay, so which river basins? Godavari and Bhima. Bhima is the tributary of river Krishna. Okay, so this civilization flourished on the banks of these two rivers. Okay, now what are the important sites? So please remember Daimabad. Daimabad is one of the largest Chalcolithic settlement sites, up to 20 hectares. Okay, very important key site from the Jorwe culture. Then you have Inamgaon. Inamgaon is also very important site, considered to be the earliest village settlement in India. Then Nevasa and Prakash. Okay, so Nevasa, Prakash, Daimabad are these all are the important sites related to the Jorwe culture, where it spread in the state of Maharashtra. So remember all these sites. Okay. Next is Ganeshwar Jodhpura culture. Ganeshwar Jodhpura culture. This is the earliest Chalcolithic culture. Can you see the timeline? 3400 BCE. The beginning of the Chalcolithic age begins with the Ganeshpur Jodhpura culture, okay, went up to 2200 BC, located in the Baleshwar Valley of Rajasthan's Sikar district, okay, and this is considered to be a pre-Harappan, fine. The two important sites are Ganeshwar and Jodhpura, okay, which valley? Baleshwar Valley, that you need to remember. Sites, two important sites, Ganeshwar and Jodhpura. The name itself of the culture represents the site. Okay. Then coming towards the Eastern Chalcolithic cultures. So Eastern cultures emerge later in the fertile plains of River Ganga and the Eastern India. The important sites are Chiran. Chiran, that's a site in Bihar. Then you have Pandurajar Dibi and Mahisadal. Okay. Mahisadal, it's in West Bengal. Okay. So these are the important sites which you need to remember from the Eastern Chalcolithic cultures. I hope all these Chalcolithic cultures are pretty clear. So six important Chalcolithic cultures are there which you need to remember. Okay. So first one, if you go to the previous site, Ahar Banas. Second is Kayatha. Third is Malwa. Fourth is Jorwe. Fifth is Ganeshpur and Jodhpura, which is the earliest culture. And Jorwe is the last one because it goes up to 700 BC. Can you see the timeline? 1400 BC to up to 700 BC. So it is the last ending phase. And then we have even the sites in the Eastern India. Now let us try to understand what are the characteristic features of this Chalcolithic period. Okay. Now, most importantly, this can be a mains question. In the mains examination, directly you can get the question for a 10 marks or a 15 marks. State the characteristic features of the Chalcolithic cultures in India. Okay. So, what are the characteristic features? So, the very first feature is that agriculture was the subsistence base. Okay, so the primary occupation, the main occupation which they practice for their survival, for their livelihood, was agriculture. However, agriculture was much more advanced than the Neolithic age. Okay, why? Because see, already in the Neolithic age, man learned the technique of agriculture, right? Producing food crops. Now, in this period, man began to master that technique of producing food crops. Okay, the most important aspect of this Chalcolithic period is diversification of food crops. If you remember the Neolithic age, only two, three important crops were grown. If you remember wheat and barley in Mehergar, then in the state of UP, Koldiva, earliest rice evidences we find, and even cotton was grown in Mehergar. But we have only limited crops in the Neolithic age. But when you talk about the Chalcolithic age, you have diversified crop options. Okay, so many crops were grown, and hence it is said to be a period of crops diversification. Okay, so which crops were grown? Wheat was there, rice was there, bajra was there, pulses such as masoor, which is called as the lentil, black gram, green gram, and pea, all these, the green peas, all these were cultivated. Okay. In the eastern India, rice was cultivated. Western India cultivated barley. Okay. In the western India, barley was cultivated and wheat. And Deccan, the Deccan Plateau area, it has the black soil, so it supports cotton cultivation. Okay. So Deccan India produce black soil, and also in Deccan area, ragi, millet, okay, that was also grown widely. So hence, what do you find over here? You find a crop diversification. Many crops were grown slowly and gradually. In this age, man began to diversify, the man began to master over the technique of production of crops. Okay, not only this, evidences also reveal that man did the dual cropping. Okay, so today we have the kharif season, the rabi season, the same. Okay, the important site of Jorwe represents that the cropping was done in the two different seasons. In the kharif season, certain crops were grown, which supported the which required water, that is, rice was grown in the Deccan area. Okay, in the Deccan area, Jorwe culture flourished in Maharashtra, and rice is mainly rice requires a very heavy rainfall. So Deccan is known for that. Okay, and the fertile soil is definitely there, the black soil. And also in the Rabi season, they grew certain crops. Okay, so that is the very important aspect which you need to remember. Agriculture was the main subsistence base or the main base of occupation. Okay, then the next important is domestication of animals. The next important feature is domestication of animals. So animals such as cattle, sheep, goat, pig, and dog were domesticated. Okay, and cattle were extremely beneficial from the perspective of agriculture. Animal bones have been discovered at number of Chalcolithic sites, suggesting extensive domestication of animals or cattle rear. Okay. Then the next important characteristic feature of Chalcolithic period is settled village life. Okay. So people in this age lived in permanent or semi-permanent villages. The houses, as you can see in the image, they were made up of mud, wattle, and daub. Sometimes even stone was accomplished. Houses were either circular or they were rectangular in shape. Please remember one important fact. The people of Chalcolithic age used mud bricks, but nowhere we find the evidences of burnt bricks. Okay. Now, if you talk about the Harappan civilization, which we'll be studying in the upcoming sessions, Harappan civilization, the most characteristic feature is extensive use of burnt bricks. Across the Harappan civilization, burnt bricks were extensively used. Though the people of Chalcolithic age, at some point of time, they were in contact with the Harappans, but people of the Chalcolithic age were not using burnt bricks. So, if in a case in UPSC preliminary examination, there's a statement, people of Chalcolithic age extensively use burnt bricks in the construction of their houses, the statement is incorrect. Okay, they use the mud bricks. The bricks made up of mud were used, but further the bricks were not baked or they were not burnt. By the way, why do you bake the bricks or burn them? Just to make them more robust. Okay, to add strength to the bricks, we do it, burning them, okay, baking them basically. However, the people of the Chalcolithic age did not use it, okay? So remember this. So these are the first three characteristic features of the Chalcolithic period. First of all, agriculture as a subsistence base. Second is cattle rearing. And third is the settled life, okay? Then the next is art and craft. Now, the people of this period, they were proficient, excellent in the copper work. Hence, we can say that they were excellent coppersmith. At the same time, they even used stone tools and especially microliths. So, if you guys remember microliths, the characteristic tools of the Mesolithic era, yes, the same microliths were even used in this Chalcolithic period extensively, the tiny stone tools. Okay, so the people of the Chalcolithic period were excellent stone worker. At the same time, they were proficient coppersmith as well. Okay, so copper was mainly used in order to make the tools such as axes were made. Okay, can you see over here? There's a copper axe, there's a copper knife, chisel for the chiseling purpose. Okay, chisel is to for the scraping and chiseling purpose. Okay, and you can see over here there's a copper fish hook. Okay, then these are the microliths, that is the trapeze shape, triangular shape, the lunate shape. Okay, so even microliths were used extensively. Not only this, they were proficient in the skills of spinning and weaving. Okay, from the Chalcolithic sites, archaeologists have discovered spindle. They have discovered needle, which are required for spinning and the weaving. Okay, so cloth manufacturing was a very important aspect of the Chalcolithic period. Not only this, one of the characteristic feature of the Chalcolithic period is the craft production. Okay, especially when I talk about the Chalcolithic period, their pottery is very well known, and every culture has its distinct pottery. Apart from that, the next important aspect is the religious belief of the Chalcolithic age people. Okay, so terracotta figurines of female deities have been discovered, and probably this indicates their reverence for the mother goddess. They worship the mother goddess. Also, archaeologists have discovered terracotta style bull. Okay, and it also refers towards the type of a worship, because bull is often associated with fertility in Indian culture. Not only this, in the graves of the Chalcolithic period, archaeologists have discovered different goods, like, for example, pottery, the remains of pottery, beads are there, copper objects are there. Okay, so what does this indicate? This indicate probably the belief in the fact of life after death. Okay, so probably they had the belief in the concept of life after death, and hence, along with the graves, we even find the grave goods. Okay, now let us move ahead and understand the other features of the Chalcolithic period. Now, the next important feature is the rural settlement. Okay. Now, see, we have understood that the people of the Chalcolithic period were in contemporary with the Harappan civilization. But Harappan civilization is the first urban civilization of the entire South Asia. However, please remember the Chalcolithic period, though they were in contact with the Harappans, they were rural settlements. They were not at all urban cities. Okay. So, no large cities like Harappa. Villages existed which varied in size. Okay. Regional culture, we do not find a single uniform culture. Like, for example, if the Jorwe culture is there, so Jorwe culture and the Ahas culture varied. Okay. Varied in, there were basic differences, especially the differences with respect to the pottery, okay, and the practices. Fine. So when we talk about the Harappan civilization, why do we call it a civilization? The reason is that across the sites, if you take any Harappan site like the Mohenjo-daro, Harappa, Kalibangan, Dholafira, you find a uniform system of planning. Certain features are common, but when you look at the Chalcolithic cultures, there are common features, but they are not extensively common. Hence, we say that these are rural settlements. Okay, and the most important aspect of this civilization is that they were illiterate. We have not discovered any script, any system of writing. Okay, so whatever knowledge we have about this Chalcolithic period, it is purely from the archaeological sources. Whatever archaeological remains are there, whatever pottery is there, whatever figurines are there, these are the sources to know about the Chalcolithic period. So these are the important factors which you need to take into consideration while studying the Chalcolithic period. Okay, so what do you need to know? The few important points: no burnt bricks, completely rural settlement, and no script, absence of written system, absence of script, completely illiterate civilization. Okay. Next, coming towards the next characteristic feature is the pottery. Now, pottery is a significant source of information to know about this Chalcolithic period. Okay. Now, different types of potteries have been discovered across the cultures. So, the peculiar types of potteries are black and red ware, a combination of black and red color. Okay. Then you have ochre colored pottery. Can you see over here the ochre color, the little bit reddish color pottery? Not exactly red, but the lighter tone, brownish red, you can say. The second one, the ochre colored pottery with the painted, and the painting is in the white paint. Okay. Then this is a tan ware. This is a thin in the sense the composition is not that hard. Okay, it's a thin one, and it's a red in color, and this is a gray color. Okay, what all what all vessels you find over here. So dishes are there, dishes on stand is there, and also globular objects are there. Okay, so black and red ware, ochre color. So this is ochre color with white painted is the famous one. Okay, and when you look at the individual culture also has its peculiar pottery. So if you talk about the Ahar culture, guys, can you remember Ahar culture? Banas Valley, Rajasthan, three important sites: Ahar, Gilund, and Balathal. Okay, so Ahar culture had a rich ceramic tradition of pottery. The famous one where the tan color ware, then the red ware, black and red ware, and even the gray ware. Okay, so these are the important potteries of the Ahar culture. Kayatha culture. Kayatha culture is mainly known for the chocolate slipped ware. So chocolate color, the little bit dark brown color, that pottery is known from the Kayatha culture. Okay, so please remember the chocolate slipped ware is the characteristic pottery of the Kayatha culture. Types are bowls are there, high end short necked storage jars are there. Okay, dishes are there. So these are the Kayatha ware. Now, the next is the Malwa culture. Now, can you see over here the Malwa pattern is little bit distinct. The distinct is that because the color over here is buff or cream colored pottery, okay, and it is again painted in the dark brown. So painting is in the dark brown, and the background, the base color is cream or buffed color pottery. Can you see over here the paintings? So the paintings are different geometrical lines, zigzag lines, wavy lines, leaf patterns. Okay, can you see where there's a leaf pattern over here? The zigzag lines are there. So this is the Malwa ware. Okay, so if you summarize this, Ahar pottery mainly you get it in the black and red ware, okay, gray ware. If you talk about the Kayatha ware, it's a chocolate slipped ware. Slipped in the sense it's a smooth in its finish. Okay, Malwa pottery, cream or the buff slipped one, smooth one. Slipped means smooth one with the dark brown painted patterns. Okay, let us move ahead. Now let us try to understand the trade and the exchange of this period. Okay, so there is a evidences of regional trade being done. Okay, regional trade, and as I've mentioned, regional in the sense the Chalcolithic cultures traded amongst themselves and with the distant cultures which were existing in India. Okay, also they were in contact with the Harappan people. Okay, so what did they exchange? Especially with the Harappa, they exchanged copper. Okay, because Harappan civilization used bronze, and in order to make bronze is an alloy of copper and tin, so you require copper. So from Harappan civilization bought copper from the people of the Chalcolithic culture, especially from the Ahar and Gilund. Okay, apart from that, regionally the goods that were exchanged were beads. Okay, so the people of the Chalcolithic period produced beads from the different precious stones. Okay, that were there, and even the shells. Now, the next is ornaments. It is said that they were very fond of ornaments. Male and female, both of them wore the ornaments. So they use beads and the semi-precious stones, like for example, carnelian you can see over here, agate you can see, jasper. All these were used in order to make the ornaments. So no, ornaments or the beads you can say. Okay. Apart from that, even copper was used, shells, bones were also used. Okay, even terracotta was used. Fine. So you can see over here the copper ornaments were there, copper earrings were there, copper armlets were there, shell necklaces were used, bone ornaments. You can see over here a comb-like structure is there. Okay, then terracotta toys are also there, and these are the different necklaces which were worn by the Chalcolithic Age period. Okay, so we have covered the Chalcolithic period comprehensively. What do you need to understand from here? You need to understand that this is a transition phase. Okay, we are connecting the Stone Age to the Metal Age with this transition period. Chalcolithic refers to Copper Stone Age. Okay. Most importantly, remember the timeline. From the preliminary perspective, please remember the different cultures, the state in which they flourished, and the important sites. Because in prelims, directly they will ask this site is associated with which Chalcolithic culture. Okay, they can give you the match the column. You need to remember it. And from the mains perspective, you need to remember the characteristic features of the Chalcolithic age. There can be a direct question, a 10 marker. State the characteristic features of the Chalcolithic period. In such question, you need to elaborate on this 10 points. Agriculture as the main occupation. The secondary is the domestication of animals, settlement, the village settlements, houses, mud brick houses. Okay. Art and craft, you need to write that they were excellent coppersmith, excellent stone workers. Okay. Religious beliefs, they believed in the concept of life after death. Rural settlements, they were absolutely rural settlements. Chalcolithic age is a rural settlement age. Okay. illiterate, no script, no written system. Okay, so how do we know about this Chalcolithic age? What is the primary source of information? Archaeological remains. Okay, then the pottery is very important, especially the ochre color pottery is very significant with the painted white design. Malwa pottery, please remember, it's a cream in color, the buff color pottery. Okay, Kayatha, it's a little bit the chocolatey color one. Fine. Then the trade and exchange you need to remember, and the ornaments you need to remember. Okay, so please revise this lecture. We are going to take all the PYQs, and also we are going to solve the MCQs related to the Chalcolithic period in the upcoming session, and then we'll be beginning with the very important topic, that is Indus Valley civilization. Okay, thank you so much. That's it for the day. Let us end over here.